Welcome back to the Mitten Players. You guys are in for a treat this episode, as this is a double feature. We will be showcasing two shows that are happening at Grand Valley this weekend. So sit back and enjoy the interviews.
Could you introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure. I'm Demetria Thomas, a visiting professor of theater in acting and directing at Grand Valley.
Tell us about yourself. What made you want to start your career in acting and teaching?
Oh my God. I decided a very long time ago when I was very small that I wanted to do something as a performer. Initially, I wanted to be a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader. Then I wanted to be a prancing J-Set at Jackson State University, their dance team. And then I started doing like monologue competitions for church and for some social organizations like the Lions Club, the Optimist Club. And that turned into a desire to do films and TV. And then I fell in love with theater. In terms of teaching, it's a relatively new sensation for me, but I really love it.
Can you tell us more about your journey from studying theater to getting involved in television acting?
Sure. I actually started my training at the University of Southern Mississippi back in 1991. And then after a couple of years, I ended up dropping out of there and actually transferring to Grand Valley, where I finished my bachelor's degree. I moved to Chicago and worked in the non-equity scene in Chicago for about 20 years. And in about year 18, I started auditioning for film and television. I'd gotten a really great agent. I was able to join the union, and I started auditioning for film and television. So I've actually gotten to do like an episode of Chicago Fire. I was a recurring cast member on a very short-lived Fox series called APB. And what I found was I actually prefer theater to film or television. I compare them to races. Like film and TV is like doing a sprint, where live theater is more like doing a marathon. I love rehearsal. And in film and TV, you don't get as much. Like you rehearse the day of, usually, right. For some of the smaller roles like that I was doing. And I love being able to connect to people in the room. So that's why most of my career has been theater.
On a similar note, how did you navigate those differences in your career?
You do the best you can. You really do.
Like
you really
that, yeah.
just kind of do the best you can. It's the same skill set, just used in a different way. So, whereas theater is a longer process, film and television is much, much shorter. So your idea of what kind of character you have to make those decisions, make those choices a lot faster, a lot sooner in the process. And so you have to have a lot more faith, trust with your directors and the rest of the staff, that the decisions that you're making, that the ideas that you're coming up with will be treated fairly and with respect. In theater, you have more time to make choices, whereas in film and TV, you need to make the same number of choices, just in split-second time.
Right.
Yeah, so I like to prepare for theater with, like, having a list of music that the character might listen to, or make a vision board that the character of images that the character might find pleasing or important. And for film, I do all of those things just very, very quickly. Yeah.
Seems pretty reasonable, to say the least.
Yeah.
How does teaching theater at a college level influence your own acting career and vice versa?
Reminds me to go back to the basics. It reminds me of the foundation of what we're doing is about connection. And being able to connect to people, connect to ideas, and then be able to communicate something new. I find myself now, as I'm teaching, making notes to myself about things to avoid when I get back into the acting realm. I don't know when that'll be, but being able to translate what I say to my students into things that are usable for myself as well. That's been a really interesting journey. I've really enjoyed being able to work on my specificity, especially when I'm giving notes, when I'm giving feedback to my students, being able to increase my acting vocabulary. And I feel like that will actually make me a better partner for directors that I'll work with in the future.
Can you share any memorable experiences or challenges you faced while working in the industry?
I remember working a lot in Chicago as an understudy. And understudying can be very lucrative and very rewarding. I was understudying this one actress named Karen Aldridge. And she was just great, just brilliant. And I understudied her, I think, twice. But such an amazing actor, an absolutely amazing actor. Well, while I was understudying her in the big theater, like it was either Chicago Shakes, I think it was Chicago Shakespeare Theater, and I was understudying her, but at the same time I was working on another show in a non-union theater, a storefront theater in Chicago with Impact, and Karen actually came and saw that show, and she was like, yeah, it's okay that you can do good work at Chicago Shakes and you can do good work here. Yeah, this is, yes, you should keep doing this. This is
Yeah, something like that.
You should keep doing this. Yes, it's okay. You can keep doing this.
Yeah.
And it just felt so comforting to know that someone whose work I admired was able to see my work and still appreciate it, even though it was so different from the kind of work that they were doing. That made me feel really good.
Love that for you, for sure.
Yeah.
In your opinion, how has the landscape of acting changed over the years? And what do you think the future holds for actors in these industries?
Technology has certainly been a huge influence in the performing world. AI is a huge threat to the work that we're doing. In some ways, it can be an asset, but I think some of the ways that it's being used to copy actors' work, to make edits to models' work, I think it can be like a real threat. I think that there's a way that it can be used as an asset. I'm just not sure what that is yet.
Right.
As tech savvy as I think that I am, I'm not sure what's the best way to be using artificial intelligence. Other things that have shifted, the Me Too movement had a huge effect on the theater world. There are a lot of bad actors, a lot of people doing bad things, and we're getting away with mistreating other people. So the industry has brought a lot of that stuff to the surface, and I think the isolation of COVID actually gave people enough free time to actually think about it, and think about just how dangerous it was to be working in an industry that's all about communication and connection and intimacy, for all of those trusts to be broken and for people to be continually mistreated. That doesn't happen, or rather, more theaters have systems in place to either prevent that or at least mitigate that and report it. That's changed a lot. But the expectation of intimacy on the actor has absolutely shifted. The expectation used to be you put your hands, your mouth, your whatever on whoever at the drop of a hat without question. Over time, that can be really damaging.
Right. I do remember you mentioning something like that during our acting process course.
Yeah, that can be really damaging to a human being, not having control over their body, over their privacy, over whether or not they want to engage in this intimate event. Now I feel like directors and producers are much more likely to engage a coach, an intimacy coach, to help develop whatever scene needs to happen, but with respect to the actor's personal boundaries and without making anyone feel taken advantage of.
Right.
Those are definitely things that have changed. Like now, I used to go to an audition and you just kind of put your mouth, like you kiss people at auditions. There's kissing scenes at auditions. and you just kind of kiss and move on with your day. But looking back on that now, it's just like
it
absurd.
doesn't make sense at that rate.
Right,
Like,
it does not make sense. It's completely absurd.
Right.
But that used to be what you did when you went to an audition. If they said kiss this guy, you kiss this guy. If they say kiss this girl, you kiss this girl. And that's not the case anymore, which I'm really relieved about.
Okay, now let's switch things up a bit.
Okay.
You recently directed Grand Valley's theater production of Dracula and this weekend's production of The Rivals.
Yeah.
Can you share more about your experiences with those shows?
And talk to you about Dracula. I was really surprised that the university would choose a piece like that. It has actually quite a bit of sexual content, quite a bit of violence, and lots of blood. So I was surprised that a university would want to take that on, but in the grand scheme of things, it turned out to be a lovely piece for us to work on. I think the students learned a lot about violence and how small violence can be and be really powerful. And I think they learned a lot about what is actually horrible. We could say that blood and guts, like that's horror, but also a person whose mind is under the control of another person, a person who is trapped in a relationship, who can't live their own life the way that they want, a person who has no power to make choices for their own life. Those are horrors.
Right.
And in Kate Hamill's adaptation, that's very much the tone that the piece takes. We can say a person coming into London wanting to kill a bunch of people is horrible, but also thousands of women not being able to feel safe in their own homes because the social construct makes them victims. Mm-hmm. And I really feel like the department as a whole learned a lot about how people respond to each other, how people work with each other during that process. So that was very, very cool. For The Rivals, I think for The Rivals, because it's an older piece, the original was written in 1775. Mm-hmm. For The Rivals, we took the opportunity to take out all the bad bits, or rather the parts of the piece that were dated or that would be considered offensive now, or relationships that we did not want to portray and put out into the universe. For example, there was actually quite a bit of racism in the original Rival script. So taking that out made it so much better.
Right.
But there were some moments of things that we called that they were really challenging because they put men and women in very difficult situations, where the joke was a man coming in and getting really handsy with a woman. That apparently was a joke in the show, and we don't live in that kind of world. So taking out all of those bits, reshaping it so that it's less of a word comedy and can be more of a physical comedy, that was really challenging. But we were also able to do a collaboration with the dance department, which was super fun. And I think everybody learned a lot about what's possible in a play. You don't just have to do only what's on the page. You can do whatever you want. And it really does become a play where you play with it. It becomes a playground.
Right.
It becomes a play script. And everything becomes a toy. And everything is at the whim of your own imagination. And that feels so amazing. And I really feel like the cast is having a good time as well.
Did you retweak the script or something beforehand? Or
yeah, I did.
How did that all play out?
I cut close to 75 pages out of the original script. And we made a couple of big leaps. The original piece took place in 1775 in Bath, England, which was a resort town where people would go to the hot springs for relaxation and healing. So what we did was we picked up the whole show and moved it to Saratoga Springs, New York in 1904, where people would go to take the waters and visit the hot springs. It was still early enough in history that people were still worried about things like dowries and marriage contracts, and, you know, getting into a relationship was much more complicated. So that freed us up a lot. Like, once we got it to America, that freed us up with lots of locations, changing lots of language. We were able to clean up a little bit of the relationships between men and women and give the women a little bit more power than they would have had. They will be less victimized by relationship building. And the costumes could still be glorious.
Oh, for sure, for sure. It's interesting to see, like, what you can really do to an adaptation and just, like, modernize it to a certain degree.
Absolutely, and the original Rivals is public domain, so we didn't have to ask anybody's permission to change the stuff that we changed.
Right.
So we changed the music. We filled it up with lots of Motown and early 60s, 70s R&B and soul music. And it's so much fun. I think everyone is having just a delightful time doing the show.
It certainly does sound like that, for sure.
Yeah, I can't wait for you to see it.
Yeah. What would be your favorite moment from this year's season so far? It doesn't even have to be from a show that you were involved in.
My favorite moment from this season. I think it would be the first day that the dance faculty, Edgar Page and Carrie Brooke Morris, came into our rehearsal for the Rivals to collaborate on this dance function. And just to work with the theater students who were so just game for anything. And then at the end of that rehearsal, to have other faculty, Edgar and Carrie, say to me, "Wow, what a great energy, what a great attitude, what a great group of students, and it seems like your process is going so well." And to have my colleagues acknowledge that in the work that I'm doing with the students just felt really, really great.
That really shows what kind of collaboration you guys can, put together and whatnot. What makes college theater unique?
The grades.
The grades?
Giving grades. But also, in professional theater, you're producing a product. You're making a product. In educational theater, while you're producing that product, you're also teaching the process. So we make decisions, sometimes casting decisions, sometimes directorial decisions that benefit the education of the student, sometimes more than the product itself. I'm as concerned about what a student learns as I am about what a student does when I'm directing.
How does someone get involved in theater at Grand Valley for upcoming freshmen next fall, or for those who are currently on campus?
Oh, yeah. So we have auditions 2 or 3 times a year. For those people who are on campus right now, we're actually having auditions this weekend, April 11th and 12th, for Romeo and Juliet, which will be part of the Grand Valley Shakespeare Festival coming this fall. If that's too short notice, then this fall we will be having auditions for the rest of the season. We're producing Intimate Apparel by Lynn Nottage. We're also producing the musical of Little Women, and we'll also be producing a world premiere by one of our faculty, Jim Bell. His piece,
Is it
Hear Me Roar.
Hear Me Roar.
There it is. I was about to hear her roar. No. Hear Me Roar, written by Jim Bell. So they can come to those auditions in the fall and be part of the mix. Maybe we can get them cast in a show, but also they're welcome to volunteer to work on the crew, either backstage, in wardrobe, in lights and sound. There's lots of ways for students to get involved. I say just either come over to the department, or you can email or call my office, and we're happy to get you in.
Starting small, you never know what you may start off at, so that's very exciting. Can you discuss any current projects you're working on or upcoming productions that you're excited about?
Oh, Romeo and Juliet. We're holding auditions for that this weekend. We're hoping that it'll be a more of a modern take on the story, something a little edgier, maybe a little darker. And so casting that's going to be really, really hard, because there's so many talented actors in the department, and then so many talented actors who aren't in the department but who are on campus. It's going to be really tough, particularly casting the fatal pair in the middle. Really excited about collaborating on violence and intimacy for that piece, but also really excited about doing our own adaptation of it. How, like, what's going to be the best shape for the students that we have. So everything that we do, we try to pay close attention to what students we're actually working with, and not just pull something out of the sky that doesn't really support the education of the students in the program. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I'm also looking forward to Intimate Apparel. It's a great piece by Lynn Nottage. It'll be, I think, in October, November. So watching that piece go up, I think, was going to be really interesting as well.
Definitely, definitely. What advice would you give to inspiring actors who want to pursue theater, film, and or television acting? Additionally, what are some valuable skills or lessons that students can learn from studying the arts, even if they don't plan on pursuing acting professionally?
Okay, so for the ones who do want to go into this style of performance professionally, I would say don't do it if you have any other thing that you can do that gives you joy. Only do it if you have to. If there's anything else that you can do that feeds your soul and gives you joy, do that instead. Because this is hard.
Oh, definitely.
This is really hard.
Mm-hmm.
So only do it if you have to. For those students who aren't necessarily going to be pursuing it professionally, but want to learn something from it, I would tell them the basics. Be on time. Do your part. And be kind and supportive to everyone that you work with. That applies to every job you're ever going to have.
Absolutely.
Be on time.
Mm-hmm.
Do your part and be kind and supportive. And that's what theater teaches you.
Right.
You have to be supportive of the people that you're working with when you're in that scene with them. You have to be supportive of your crew and everyone backstage. You have to be on time, because all we have is time, energy, effort. That's all we've got.
The main three is indeed.
That's all we've got.
Right.
So if we are short on time, then our energy is wasted and our effort is misguided.
Right.
So show up when you're supposed to show up. That helps a lot. And that's what I would say for any student studying anything, going into any other business. Be on time.
Definitely, definitely. What do you hope students take away from your classes and your experiences in the industry?
That they can do whatever they want to do. They can do whatever they set their mind to. They can set their goals as high as the sky, and they can absolutely achieve them. It will be hard, but they can do it. If the students have a goal to perform at the Grammys, absolutely doable. Absolutely doable. Make it a priority. Take steps every day to work toward it. That's what I want them to get out of it. Everything's possible. And any restriction that they have is them restricting themselves. You can do it. You want to be famous? We can do it. You want to be famous for acting? We can do that too.
Definitely. Yeah, something like that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely doable.
Finally, where can we find more information about Grand Valley Theater Department?
The Music Theater and Dance website. So GVSU /MTD. That'll give you all the information about the department. You'll see a list of faculty, also upcoming events, auditions, and performances.
Thank you again to Demetria Thomas for that exclusive interview. Next, we will transition to the student organization side of things with Grand Valley Stage. Here is a backstage sneak peek at their latest project, Legally Blonde the Musical. A little bit of a preview for tonight. Not tonight, just the show. Some costume pieces.
My name is Miles Toriani. I am the producer of Legally Blonde the Musical and vice president of stage.
I'm Georgia Hessel. I'm the president of stage and the director and choreographer of Legally Blonde the Musical.
Tell us a bit about yourselves. How long have you guys been involved in theater?
So personally, I joined theater when I was in high school. I did every single show that you could possibly do in high school except the first musical we did for the year, my freshman year. But I watched, it was Sister Act, and I really liked it, and I wanted to be a part of it, so naturally I joined the props crew, and then I kind of worked my way up and helped out there, and then ended up becoming the props crew head for the next couple years. And then coming to college, I wanted to keep my passions going and do more of like the producerial side of things and kind of branch out into like, instead of being a part of the space for people, creating the space for people. So that's when I joined the e-board for stage right away when I got here. And I was treasurer right out the gate, and then again, kind of just worked my way up, and now I'm vice president.
When I was probably in late elementary school, early middle school, I did like a theater summer camp it was just like a really low key one, like a few days a week at a community college, and I really enjoyed that. And then my sophomore year of high school, the same high school, I joined the production of Sister Act, and I auditioned, but I didn't get in, so I joined crew, and I fell in love with it, and I did almost every production, I think minus one play, all the way through my senior year as well. And I ended up being co-president of tech crew and president of drama club, and it was a really fun time. We got to work together a lot in that process. And then I got to Grand Valley State University in fall of 2020, so there wasn't a lot of theater going on, and I did help out with Stages Yikes in the fall semester. And then I joined e-board like summer of 21, and I've been on the board ever since. So, yeah.
What inspired you both to do theater?
Yeah, I was really just inspired by like that first show that I saw at my high school, which was Sister Act. It just looked like so much fun. Like every single detail of the show was so perfected, and everyone seriously cared about their craft so much, and you could see it on stage, you could hear it, you could feel it. And some of my friends in high school were also involved in it, so they were kind of like, yeah, you should do this. Like that would be awesome if we could like hang out and do this together. And that's what ended up happening, and I've loved doing it ever since, because I also just feel that magic within it.
My mom told me to join a club in high school, and she said she'd help me pay for my laptop if I did. So I was like, well, I'll audition for the musical. And then she helped me pay for my laptop, but then I just stuck with crew, and I loved it so much that it became my whole life.
Good benefit to that. Before going to Grand Valley, did you guys have a favorite show you guys were in?
That's always such a tricky question. I will say we're from Illinois, so we did kind of an unorthodox kind of theater for part of our season, which was it was called GICP, and so that stands for Group Interpretation and Contest Play. And so there's a lot of parameters to that, but it's competitive theater, and you have to like set up a set and tear down a set in a certain amount of time. Sometimes you have to act towards the audience for group interpretation and all of that. And one of my most favorite productions I was ever a part of was we were going to do Fahrenheit 451 during the spring of 2020. And I will go out on a limb and say I know we would have won at state, because it was just such a polished show. Everyone cared about it so much. You could just feel that energy in the room, and everyone was so committed and worked so hard. And we had some really cool set designs, we had really cool lighting designs, and it was just such an amazing thing to be a part of. And of course, naturally, it got canceled because of COVID, but I think that was one of my favorite shows of all time, just because of how connected we all felt and the magic of how beautiful it was.
to add on to that unorthodox theater, there's this thing that our directors always did to explain it, where it'd be like, "Hi, Miles, I have a letter for you."
Oh, thank you very much. And so that's how you would act for this group interpretation. And you could do any work of fiction. So one of our years we did Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and that was, of course, very interesting to do with very minimal set stuff. And yeah, it was awesome.
I mean, Sister Act will always have a special place in my heart because it was the first show I ever did, but overall, my favorite is going to have to be Beauty and the Beast because it's the show that we started dating during. And it's just like kind of like, I don't know, it's a romantic show and it was a romantic time. We got to work together because I would cue Miles I would be in the light booth and he'd be backstage and I'd be like, go with the rose petals falling. So it was kind of fun because we were Team Rose.
And there were some times that it didn't even work. So that was awesome because we rented that thing for like $500.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
It looked cool
Oh, I
though.
bet.
Yeah.
I bet. That's awesome, you guys. Favorite show in general? Like outside of your...
I mean, it's so hard because we're doing Legally Blonde right now, so
Yeah.
I've got to say Legally Blonde. I listen to it in the shower. I listen to it all over the place. So I think right now that's what I would say, but all time, probably 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee, just because that show is always a blast. Or I would say Shrek. I would never do Shrek because you have to do Shrek right. Don't do Shrek if you can't do Shrek. But Shrek is great.
Yes, indeed.
I mean, right now it's hard to not say Legally Blonde, but my favorite show of all time is definitely Newsies. I just want to be, I'm going to look right at the camera, and Tim better leave this in. I want to be a little tap dancing boy on stage in New York with a little hat, okay? That's my dream. I want to be like, look at me, I'm the king in New York. And we're going to pretend my phone didn't fall out of my pocket. So that's my favorite show.
Hear that, casting directors? That's your cue right there.
Put me in. Put me in, coach.
Continuity.
Thank you.
Similarly, if you guys could pick any show and role, what would be considered your dream roles?
If I can start, we are backstage folk. Of course, it's my dream to be like overheard singing in the bathroom by a local music producer and then whisked away to a lead role on Broadway, because whose dream isn't that? But we both live backstage, so it's a little tricky to say. Have you been thinking while I've been precursoring?
I know I just said don't do Shrek if you can't do Shrek, but it would be cool to do Shrek. I mean, if you can do that, like you've got a realm of theater that's just so there because you can do the castle, you can do the makeup, you can do all that. But it is kind of trickier because we are backstage. But really, my dream show is whatever's going to make everyone excited to be there. You know what I mean? Like being a producer of Legally Blonde the musical has really taught me that like we made a good choice because everyone just loves wearing pink and everyone loves doing what we're doing. So any dream show of mine is a dream show of anyone else's.
What would be your cast role?
Oh, I've never done cast, and I will never do cast. So,
Yeah, we
Mine-
should well figure that out before we record this. But
I mean, I sing in the shower, but that's just for me. So,
still valid.
sorry guys.
Honestly, after doing it, a dream role would probably be Elle Woods, which I got to create Elle Woods, which is cool, but it would be fun to play the role. Other roles, a dancer in Newsies, please hire me. Or I would never want to professionally do this, but for fun, I would love to be one of the dancers in Chicago. And can I stand up
Yeah.
real quick? I feel like this is
This is free
I-
reign.
I would love to be one of the dancers that's pop, six, blah, 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 la, 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 Cicero, lip shits. I don't know. I don't really know the dance, but I think it would be really cool to be they had it coming. So that would be dream role. I like dance, so a role that would be dance heavy, but without the leaps. I couldn't do the leaps in Newsies. You're gonna have to put me in a Peter Pan rig for that.
I also want to say that though it's not my dream role, a lot of people tell me that I need to be SpongeBob in SpongeBob the Musical. I don't know why they say this to me, but there's a select few of our cast and crew that are just like, oh yeah, you're SpongeBob. And I don't know if that's a compliment or I should be offended, but I guess I'm SpongeBob.
Sharpay Evans, High School Musical.
Also a valid answer, yes, indeed.
I'm picking a lot of blonde roles, and other than right now, I'm usually not blonde, but that's okay.
Tell us about Stage and what do you guys offer as a theater club?
So Stage is a GVSU theater club. We meet every Thursday in Kirkhoff, at least as of now, and we are just kind of a place for anyone to come in together and hang out and talk about theater. We try to do like weekly meetings where we play theater games and we do like activities. We try and like sneak in a little learning, like getting kids to like sneakily eat their vegetables. And then every semester we try to do at least one production. To lead into what I know you'll kind of keep saying is we usually are going to do fall semester Yikes, and then winter semester a bigger show. So fall semester is like a culmination of like student written shorts, plays, and scripts, and we put them all together into one show. So like a one act show and then a big production in the winter. And those are open to any student. We're not affiliated with the theater department. You don't have to be a theater student. It could be your first time ever doing theater and your friend could have just dragged you along and then you fall in love with it. That's kind of half our club. So yeah.
And even if you're not like gonna go do theater, then come see our shows. If you are just an avid enjoyer of theater, we like to make sure that we have a way for people to enjoy watching things or coming and talking to us and being a part of the club, but we're just another way for people to enjoy theater and enjoy the experience of it all.
Mm-hmm. And you don't have to be an avid theater enjoyer even to come to the shows, because we know that not everyone on a college campus wants to come see that kind of thing. So like we try to curate all our shows to like a college audience. So the skits are usually like really funny. Like someone wrote a skit about like the song Stacy's Mom, but like acting out the whole thing. There's been a reoccurring script of a Bill Nye copy pasta. So we do try and curate to a college audience.
As this is GVTV's Performing Arts Hub, this is basically an introduction to giving you guys an idea of what Stage is like. So yes, thank you on that. What makes Stage stand out from Grand Valley's main stage productions?
I think what makes us stand out is that we are entirely student ran. We have a faculty advisor who helps us coordinate some things, but this musical that is going on has been funded, fundraised, put on, directed, produced by students, by 20-something-year-olds that are working really hard to create a space for people. And I like to think that translates on stage, where it's just like a bunch of students having fun as students without like any adult authority figures being like, you're doing that wrong, or you need to be more crisp or more clean or more professional. Obviously, we're trying to have a good show and be clean about it, but you know, we are just a bunch of students doing a bunch of student things. We all have our classes, we all have our other lives, but at the end of the day, we all have this in common, and I think that that's something that kind of differs from the main stage performances here at Grand Valley.
And we're always like learning and growing, because like this whole show we pretty much have created the process for on the fly. Like pretty much Miles and I have built that from the ground up of like, let's figure out how to get rights, let's figure out how to book it, let's figure out how to put it all together. Mm-hmm. So like I think something that varies for better or for worse is like main stage has like a set like way of doing things, which is awesome. Mm-hmm. But we're kind of new to putting on shows like this, and we're still creating our process, and I think that's kind of cool to be a part of, like the beginning of something. Something else, we don't have a current like stage. We're called Stage. We don't really have one permanently. We're in the Cook DeWitt Center, which is a stage and it's awesome, but we don't have any consistent performing arts spaces or resources, and I think that's something that differs a lot from main stage.
And another thing as well is Stage has been around since at least the 1990s. This club has some history. And Georgia and I have been on the e-board for Georgia's a senior, so like the past 4 years or so. I'm a junior, so the past 3 years or so. And before our time on e-board, stage was pretty much exclusively student-written performances. We had never done a big play, a big musical, anything that people would know the name of off of like a poster or anything. And so what makes us different as well is that like we kind of paved this path of like, hey, let's do Charlie and the Chocolate Factory as a play, and then we did. And hey, let's do a musical, which is something Georgia has been dreaming about ever since she got here. And here we are. So I think what also makes us different is like Georgia said, we are new in this, and we are doing things that this club has never seen before in its history.
That's awesome, you guys. For our viewers, tell us a little bit about Legally Blonde.
You take it.
So Legally Blonde is the first musical ever in Stage's history. It is a really cool show. It's like formally licensed and everything by Music Theater International. It's April 11th, 12th, and 13th of 2024, and it is like it's a full-blown show. We have like real sets, we have like real costumes, we have a full crew, we got a sound system, we got the whole shebang, which you would think I'm just naming really basic theater things, but you'd be surprised from where we've come from. It's kind of cool to see the process because this is the first time we've had such a big production, quite frankly. And just a year ago, we had like a paper cardboard, like a brown cardboard wall that we used as a chocolate river for Charlie and the Chocolate Factory to go from that to massive like wooden moving sets on wheels that say the hair affair. It's really cool. We have a cast of I think about 30 people, and we have like a lot of really cool different people from different backgrounds, different departments. Yeah, and it's a fun time. We've all really enjoyed putting this show together.
How come you guys wanted to direct this show?
I wanted to direct this show because we went back and forth for a really long time trying to decide what show we should do, and we decided that it's really funny saying it now because it doesn't feel like it. We thought it would be easier than other shows, and I still think it is. Obviously, we couldn't have done a show with flying or pyrotechnics, but it was a show we thought we do have like a more feminine group of people, like not to be binary, but like more girls. So we wanted to pick a show that like had like more of like a woman-centric ensemble. And we thought like getting a lot of like the costuming together would be a lot easier than like Shrek. So just things like that we thought like the show was kind of more set in reality, and that made it a little easier. And also we just knew that it's a really cool message. We love supporting women here at Stage, and we wanted to support like Elle Woods because everyone's Elle Woods at the end of the day. Like everyone has their own Elle Woods story. Everyone's trying to pursue something, and I think it's just a really empowering show for everyone. It has a lot of good themes and messages.
And a message we need now, because there's a lot of sexism in this world that is not okay. So
now more than ever.
More than ever.
Yeah, so we want to support women and we want to support dogs.
For a good cause, indeed. Where can we get tickets, and when is the show performing? Of course, you probably already asked that, but...
I'm just trying to say it in sync. It'll be horrible.
no, just
April 11th, 12th, and 13th. We're going back and forth.
if you go to bio.link/GVStage, you can click on Legally Blonde Tickets, and it will take you to fill out the form, and you can pay for your tickets and pick your spot.
$5.
$5.
That's only this many. That's this many quarters times this many. You only need 20 quarters.
And all proceeds are going to be donated to Michelle's Rescue, which is a women-owned animal shelter based here in Grand Rapids.
For our viewers currently not involved in Stage, what could we expect for next fall, if you have anything to share about that?
For next fall, we are planning on doing our regular season for that semester, which is doing Yikes, which, as aforementioned, is student written, student performed little skit show. And that's always a blast because you can just tell how much fun people are having and all of that. And then for winter, we are most likely going to do another musical, but I cannot say more about that at this time. But that's what you can expect. It'll be awesome.
To add on, Yikes gives everyone a chance to do different things because there's at least like 5 directors. So instead of like one director and one producer, it's like here's 5 directors, here's a bunch of different casts. Everyone has a chance to do different things, which is cool.
Finally, where can we find Stage on social media?
You can find Stage
At GV Stage.
on Instagram,
At GV Stage.
Twitter, Facebook, those places.
Everything that you can imagine, yeah.
Yep. We mostly post on Instagram, so check that out. We have a really good social media manager. Shout out to Emma Uhala. She is a wizard at creating amazing graphics for you to enjoy on Instagram.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate
Thank you.
the time.
Thank you.
I feel like we should like sing or something.
I mean, if you want to. I mean,
Now we're good.
Oh my god, you guys. See Legally Blonde this weekend, oh yeah.